You know a game I haven't played in a long time? Super Metroid. I think we're going to play some Super Metroid today. How you guys doing? I'm not going to waste your time or mine by doing Series Station. We're just going to jump right into the game, go right down to Planet ZB's, and play some Super Metroid. So the thing about this game is... this looks wrong. This is, the floor seems to be over there, and something's not right. Actually, nothing is right. Everything is left. I think I'm gonna have to bring in my co-host on this one. Say hello, ice cold delicious Pepsi. Okay, so this is Super Metroid Rotation. And this is Super Metroid, and the whole game has been rotated 90 degrees. And it's probably the only Super Metroid Romhack I've ever really, fully appreciated and enjoyed. But it's gonna take some doing to get through it. There's a lot of wall jumping, especially in the beginning. There's some actually real sticky areas that you would not expect. Of course, they had to make some changes here and there. It's kind of an old hack. I think this made the rounds in 2015 or 2016 or so. So it's been out for a few years now. And yeah, they made some changes to a few rooms, but only when absolutely necessary. I'm pretty sure the hundo is still possible. I'm not really interested in doing a hundo in rotation. Some of the areas are made easier, like this room here. You don't have to fall or climb, you can just run through it. Some areas are way harder, and it's actually possible to get stuck in some places. So why don't you join me? Let's play some Super Metroid Rotation. We're going to go in here to the first elevator, and because the whole world is rotated, the elevators go left instead of down. Does your head hurt yet? Because I think my head might hurt. Alright, so the first thing you have to do in Metroid is get the Morph Ball. So let's go ahead and do that first. None of the items are in different locations. Everything is where you expect it to be. But the first time I tried this ROM hack, I think I watched it at an SGDQ one summer. And I was kind of surprised at which areas of the game were actually more difficult. And I think the first time I played it, I actually got hard stuck in an area that was not possible to get out of. Or at least I couldn't think of a way to get out of. And after a few practice runs, I think I can make my way through the game without getting stuck. We are going to save often, just in case I get somewhere I am not expecting to be. But some items are much easier to get than is typical. In fact, we're going to get one right now. In this room here, the energy tank in this room is not possible to get. The man up here. It's not possible to get on your first pass. You can kind of glitch into it if there are enemies in the room by damage boosting up into it, but that actually is not possible on your first pass, because they don't actually add enemies to the map until you go back up the elevator into criteria. I mean, you can go back up and then immediately ride the elevator. I'm sorry, you can go back right and immediately ride the elevator left if you so choose. But the hitboxes on doors, which are now vertical, is a little wonky sometimes, and we're going to see some strangeness, especially in flooded rooms. Rooms that are filled partially with lava or acid or water, because those rooms get very, very difficult. Maybe difficult is not necessarily always difficult, but very different for sure. One thing we also want to keep in mind is, to make the hack work in some spaces, they have removed gates. Any blue or green gates in the game. I don't know if that's because they can't be made to work in the rotation, like for some reason. I know there are actually still gates in the game. Any gates, the timed gates, the ones that you typically need speed booster to get through, are still in the game. But anyone that you need to shoot to open has been removed. So the one-way sections of the game are no longer one-way. This means predominantly you can get into areas of Meridia and Lower Norfair earlier than you should be able to if you really want to. In fact, I think the speedrun of Rotation actually fights Ridley as the second boss, just because when you're in Norfair clearing out some items, the path to Ridley is just open by default, so you might as well, you know? So we're going to head over here and get some bombs. I will not be fighting Ridley early. Some of the boss rooms are, you'll see, very different as well. They require different strategies and had to kind of relearn things. I think the Ridley fight in particular is actually easier. My Chozo statue here is doing some yoga. We'll leave him to it. We'll let him do his thing, whatever he needs to do. Let him go ahead and wake up. Dragon is much, much harder. Fantoon and Kraid. I think the nature of the Kraid fight, because of how the Kraid fight is, and Crocomire as well, because of the way those fights actually work in the code, their rooms couldn't be rotated. I think those fights are pretty much the same. Maybe Kraid has less room to maneuver a little bit. We, of course, will be skipping Spore Spawn, and there's another boss that we'll be skipping, which is, I will leave as an exercise to the viewer. I need to, I guess, wall jump out of here. This room here was the first part where I got stuck, because here's the thing. You gotta run all the way up here, or actually wall jump all the way up here, and you got these nerds kind of swooping down at you. And you can kill a couple of them on each pass, but what we actually want to do is lure them to one side, and then see if we can jump up to the platform on the other side. And that seems to not be the case. Now they're on both sides, which is not what we want to see. So there's a couple rooms like this kind of situation here, where you have to wall jump very quickly up the room. Ah, okay, good. We got out of there. I wasn't stuck in that room for 20 minutes like I was the first time I tried this hack. Actually, I think the save room is one of the tricky rooms to get out of. If you take the path to the save room in Criteria here. So we won't be using that save room. Whoop, I didn't mean to fall all the way down. We're not going back to the ship. And if you fall off the ship, you've got some difficult wall jumping ahead of you. One area that I don't typically do in these runs in Rotator is the Criteria Gauntlet, because it's all the way above you now. And we could bomb jump up there, but it's kind of a pain in the butt. Alright, let's go ahead and... Beautiful. Beautiful. I'm actually doing really well. That's a very difficult jump to get up through that little bomb hole that you have to make for yourself. So now instead of a slope that we run down, we have a mountain that we have to drudgingly climb up. A few pixels at a time, Samus is scraping her knees, heading on up. And again, we've got to clear these monsters out from... Oh, actually, that was the only one. The other one's a gamer, and the gamer will just wander away. If you are not comfortable with wall jumping, do not play this hack. One change that I know that they did make is to the liquid physics in the game. Liquid works a little differently, just because of how many rooms you've got to go through that are going to be flooded. I think they made the physics for liquid a little more forgiving. And this room... Actually, you know what? I think this is another change that they have to make necessarily, because there are... Oh, there's a power bomb block. I can't get in here. Oh, I can get in here. Because the crumble blocks you typically fall through are no longer crumble blocks. Some areas are accessible from directions that they shouldn't be. So I think we can get all these missiles right now. We just do the gauntlet from the wrong direction. But if I go into the room, you're going to have to take my word for this, because you're thinking I could just go through the top of the gauntlet and go into the room, right? And go through and get the energy tank. The problem with that is, I wonder how much of this I can actually show you before it becomes an actual problem. Let's see how much... I might die here and have to start the whole run over. If that's the case... Yeah, you see? The whole room is filled with acid. So we'd have to go all the way down through that acid to get our E-Tank. And the reason for that is, in vanilla game, obviously, that room is a cave with rising and falling acid that kind of gets in your way. And in any rooms like that in the game, instead of the acid still fills up about half of the room, but now half of the room is many, many screens, because each room is much, much taller. So the gauntlet is not a great idea, but getting a few extra missiles never hurt nobody. We just have to let this guy not shoot us, because these guys can shoot through walls and we can't. I see how it's going to be. You guys are trying to cheap shot me. So if you've never seen this before, as an exercise going through the game, try to think of what rooms are going to be easier and what rooms are going to be harder as we go through. Because I guarantee the answer is going to surprise you. It's not always the rooms that you think it's going to be. Which is part of the fun. To me, I like having Romhacks that still keep like 1 foot in the world of reliability, like familiarity, maybe a better word. I still want to kind of have some connection to the reality of the game. It's one of the reasons I actually like randomizers so much. Is a randomizer, yeah, everything's moved around, but usually the randomizer is anchored in the reality of the game. And in this room, I want to stay to the right, and I'll just fall through the speed platforms. Well, maybe not. I have to stay to the right, but not all the way to the right. Well, unless there's... Maybe I am stuck here. We're stuck already. No, we gotta do this. That's it. You can't shoot that block out, you gotta bomb it out. This is a situation where we would have been stuck in the randomizer if we hadn't gotten any bombs or power bombs yet. Or if we gotten only power bombs and used them all before we got into this room. I'm glad this block regrows. That makes my life a little easier. We have to do a perfect mid-air morph to get up through here. But first we have to bomb the block open. Because that pipe is in the way. And the pipes work a little strangely too. Oh, I didn't push down enough. Actually, I guess that works. You just... It's like a Metroid 1 trick where you just let the block grow on top of you and push you upwards. Let's try that again. So yeah, we actually want to fall to the right, but we want to fall to the left of the platform here. Like this. Then they just let us through right here. Haha! And don't worry, we get to do another one of those extremely precise mid-air morphs to get out of this area once we get our super missiles. You do have to be crazy to make or play a ROM hack like this. I don't know what that says about me, particularly, but anything you can do to take a game that I'm familiar with and mix it up just a little bit to make everything a little different, maybe a little fresh, because I did find it very exhilarating playing through this game and identifying the spots where things were strange, like in different rooms that were more difficult like this room I'm about to go into is another spot where it's possible to get stuck for a long time. Because instead of having like a long hallway with bouncy guys, you got a long shaft. And bouncy guys just fall out of the sky. And then we got this man here. We really do want to kill this guy. We don't want to let any of these people alive, because if we take any damage, it ends our spin jump. And therefore our wall jump. There's a couple shafts like this in the game where you just kind of work your way up. Kill the monsters. Excuse you. I thought there was only 2 of the bouncy guys in the shaft, but no, I guess there's 3. And then when we get all the way to the top... Oh, I shot the wrong direction there. If I'd have fired up instead of down, I would have hit that thing. These kind of challenges, though, in this Romhack, take all the energy we can get here. Oh, there's one more guy. These kind of challenges where you got to clear the shafts out, they're kind of front-loaded, because eventually we'll have the high jump boots, we'll have the space jump eventually. So when we get to the hardest sections of the game, especially lower Norfair, we won't have to be doing this kind of challenge anymore, but then the challenges, there's a different kind. And this D-pad, I think I mentioned this D-pad in a couple of my Let's Plays now, is, it's got a little too much travel on it. I use an 8-bit-do SNES-style Switch controller as my primary PC controller these days. And it feels good, except the D-pad is a little too slippy, which makes it a little too easy to push up or down when you don't want to. This is also a space where the Zero Mission style spin jump button would come in very handy. Because if you get into a situation like this, you don't have to fall all the way down. You'd be able to push the jump button in midair to start spinning again. I wonder how many Super Metroid hacks add that in. I know some Super Metroid hacks do screw around with the physics a little bit. This one does. As we'll see when we get to some water sections. For the most part, though, unless you find a room you absolutely can't get out of, like this, most of the tricks you have to do in this game are still pretty forgiving. And you can try them as much as you need to before you finally get out. But I am curious to see your guys' guesses. What rooms are going to be the most surprisingly difficult ones? Because I can virtually guarantee they're not the ones that you think. I think some of the doors had to change, too, here and there. Because now horizontal doors are vertical and vertical doors are horizontal. And I couldn't swear to this, but I remember something about horizontal and vertical doors in Super Metroid like being a little different, like working a little differently. So that might have had to change as well. Like they might have had to go through and replace all the doors. There's also a block at the top of the screen and a block at the bottom of the screen that you can't see on the map, but are present in the game world. I think some of that, especially on the top, I think it's because it's covered up by the ammo counts and the map and the energy and everything up there. But there are some screens, like you might have seen in the previous shaft, you'll be standing on what looks like nothing, and there's actually a block in the bottom of the screen. Just go ahead and... This is much easier to get, though. No tricks required, just blow your way through. Because it's underneath you now, you're standing on top of it. Shoutouts to Scott McIntosh for sponsoring this video. If you liked the video and you want to see more, please tickle my thumb, leave a friendly comment, and ring my little bell.